Tennessee football recruiting, getting back to the Vols, as this is a monster month, and I don't think you can really overstate how big of a month this is. You're going to have some coaches that are going to take a look elsewhere. If I'm Tim Banks, the defensive coordinator, I'm going to take a look elsewhere. You're going to have players. We're going to get to Arch Manning, who might look around a little bit, and also we're going to take a look at Tennessee recruiting, which right now, if you look at it, took a little bit of a body blow recently. Vols at number 12. They had been as high as number 9. What happened? Let's go ahead and give that what the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, so tell me what's going on. What the H? How did the Vols slip to number 12 in recruiting when they haven't picked up or lost anybody? But there are always things changing in recruiting, and it is brought to you today by our friends at Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, play to win, banksjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones, ready to go to trial for you. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones, banksjones.com. Whether it comes to criminal defense or personal injury, they got you. What's happening in recruiting? Why is Tennessee dropping to 12? Should I sound the alarm?
I don't think you need to sound the alarm. I think it just has to do with a lot of other schools have been making moves recently, and Tennessee has not. Most notably, Miami has flipped an Ohio State commitment that was a pretty big splash for them and pushed them into the top 5 in recruiting recently. And Ohio State's still number 2, so they weren't going to go anywhere. Texas A&M is somehow they are still hanging on. They are ahead of Tennessee right now at number 11. The firing of Jimbo Fisher didn't have much of an impact. That NIL cash is still just rolling through, Dave.
Well, here's the other thing that I brought up, and that was with John. I mean, people ask me because I went to Powell High School, and Walter Nolan went to Powell High School, even though he has very little. I mean, my dog, who I just got, has more ties to Powell than Walter Nolan does. But people were asking me, will he just naturally go back because things didn't go right at A&M? Well, here's the thing. He could already be neck deep in NIL money. Are you going to want to turn down X in hopes of getting X plus, especially leaving A&M? It would be different if he were leaving UC Irvine, like McAllen Castles did, right? You can top them. I don't know that you can necessarily just go out and top A&M with the NIL cash they have. I don't think that's a given at all. Caleb?
Yeah, I agree. A&M is one of those that they are the Yankees or Red Sox. And by the way, so is Tennessee of college football with NIL cash. I mean, they are out there buying players left and right, and they're going to keep doing that. Texas was another one. Texas added a couple of big commits over the last month. Remember, they got Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis, which we thought Tennessee was in play for, the 5-star. And then they recently, in mid-November, got Wardell Mack, a defensive back, and that pushed them ahead of Tennessee. So there's just been other teams making moves. I think Tennessee's been okay. The question we have that I've been having, because Dave, you were kind of throwing recruiting. You're not throwing recruiting rankings out the window anymore, but you understand the politicking that goes on. Do you put more stock now with coaches into what they're doing on the trail or what you see from them in game now, calling plays? What matters more to you?
Well, it has to be both. And you asked that question on our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, and I thought more about it throughout the morning. I went ahead and ran my, it was a marathon Thursday for me. So I went ahead and charted my, 24 and a half miles? No, I didn't do that. I think it's both. I think if I'm Tennessee, you can't have a major shift right now in recruiting, but if there's a little tweak, if Glenn Ellerby is considering going to Carolina and he's got a bunch of guys there that he already has a good feel for, maybe he should go to Florida instead. I'm just picking a random name, a random Tennessee assistant coach. He coaches the offensive line. I think that Florida, from what I'm hearing, their class is going to fall apart. Could be wrong. We'll see, but they've got some issues there. And that's because of Billy Napier, detail-oriented. Seems like he's on his way out, if not this year, then next. And then with Mario Cristobal, not to the same extent. I've been told that his class would fall apart, but enough where if I'm Tennessee or any other school, I'm all go in Florida. There's no question.
And this is where the question comes in. Miami's making moves. So you're right. Florida's already starting to fall apart. Billy Napier secured a lot of commitments in June just to get an early splash to get the momentum that he needed. Miami they're doing the opposite though, Dave. They're going in the opposite direction and trending upwards right now with Mario Cristobal. Now, my question is, if you're a Miami fan, are you excited that he's doing well on the trail, or are you worried because you're like, this guy's so incompetent managing games, it doesn't matter what he does on the trail because he's just going to find ways to lose games because he's just that terrible of a coach in the game.
The latter, because you and me could have a top 10 class. You and I'm not exaggerating, could have a top 5 class at Miami. That area, that 3-county area of around Dade County is the most talent-rich area in the country. There are literally 75 to 100 Division I football players that will come out of that area annually. They're also regularly overrated. That's not to say that they are as a whole. I don't mean it. Be in that area if you're Tennessee or anybody else that wants to compete for championships, but you're more likely to get bumped from a 3 or 4 star if you're in South Florida. So you and I could look fantastic in recruiting, Caleb, but we might spit the bit on Saturday, which Mario Cristobal has done. So I think it is fool's gold, if that's what you're asking me.
So what you're saying is it's not like
I'd almost rather, let me say this. I'd almost rather be Billy Napier and things just fall apart and I can rebuild than Cristobal, who is seemingly hanging on there. That through recruiting, that to me would be incredibly frustrating.
So on the other side, though, because you and I both sit there and get blown away by the fact that Les Miles and Ed Orgeron have championships at LSU, that is just, it's laughable to say out loud. When you see that happen, are you sure that a Cristobal can't load up on talent so much that he could be as incompetent as Les Miles and still win a championship?
Well, I don't think he's that good of a coach, but let's remember this. Miami doesn't have near the fan support of LSU. I mean, they're 45 minutes from campus to go to a game there. There's not a good game day atmosphere. They are a bit of a hoity-toity school. You know, I don't like Missouri because of that. I don't like Duke basketball because of that. Miami has a little bit of that going in their athletic department.
Which is funny because they have a bunch of inner city kids playing football going around in this hoity-toity campus. I don't know how that works out.
And the campus is bizarro gorgeous. I mean, I've tried to get my son to take a trip there just for the heck of it, but he wouldn't do it. But it is. Go ahead.
So I know we wanted to move on, but I wanted to touch this too, because out west, you saw Deion Sanders has lost 3 recruits. Is that a trend? Or do you think, like, because Deion Sanders' whole selling point was recruiting, or do you think this is things falling apart under him quickly?
You know what's funny is I thought Deion Sanders would have success there, but I'm beginning to wonder that because, you know, one of the first things, and I hate that everything cycles back to Tennessee for some of those that aren't Tennessee fans are like, Dave, come on, you got a story about Tennessee with every one of them. But one of the things that Philip Fulmer used to do is he would sit down and he would teach all of the players on his team the history of Tennessee, what General Neyland meant to our country, meant to the University of Tennessee. And I don't think that Deion Sanders is doing that. I don't think he's having them sit down and say, you got to remember the Bill McCartney days. Those were special times. You've got to be loyal to Colorado because it's Colorado. I think he's asking kids to be loyal to Colorado because of cash. And those are 2 very, very different things. So if they can't play right away, if they don't have the NIL cash they can get somewhere else, and let's face it, Colorado doesn't have as much money as at least 30 or 40 other schools. They got a problem. I don't care how much weed you sell.